All right, I promise no more 49ers updates from Soviet-era roller coasters. Oh boy! Woo-hoo! Instead, we're giving you the definitive Brandon Aiyuk return to play timeline from the old Kings Vineyards. A little more of a dignified place for a dignified update. Brandon Aiyuk might be back for week 1. It's possible Matt Mayoko has reported that that is on the table for Aiyuk. But again, throughout this entire process, we've emphasized that it is unlikely that he is back by week 1. Remember that Aiyuk tore his ACL and his MCL. I say and I emphasize and because both ligaments were injured back in October. If it's just a clean ACL tear like Stephon Diggs' ACL tear, well, then you're looking at maybe the 9-month minimum recovery. But usually if it's the ACL and the MCL tear, it's a little bit more complicated and you have something that might take more than 9 months. So he did not go under the knife, Brandon Aiyuk, until November. So you go November all the way into the next November, that's 12 months. 11 to 11, right? November is the 11th month of the year. Subtract 3. This is some of the simplest math we'll ever do. This is not a salary cap update, but 11 minus 3, that's 8. So August would be the minimum, the 9-month return timetable for Brandon Aiyuk. So add a little bit of time to August. You get September because of the ACL and the MCL complication. The 49ers began the season in early September. In all likelihood, the 49ers are going to want to play this one safe. They don't want to rush Brandon Aiyuk back. And in that case, he's not available for the start of the season. If he's not available for the start of the season, you don't want to burn a roster spot for Brandon Aiyuk. So you keep him on PUP, physically unable to perform into the regular season, and he has to be on that list for a minimum of 4 weeks. So I think in all likelihood, Brandon Aiyuk is going to miss the first 4 weeks of the 2025 season. So we're giving you the non-touristy look at Prague. I know you've already seen the castle, you've seen Charles Bridge. Yesterday, though, you got to see the Soviet-era roller coaster. No more of that. We're going to be much safer this time. These are called the King's Vineyards because literally King Charles IV, back in the 14th century, wanted his own winery region. So just a few miles away from his castle, he planted some vineyards. This entire neighborhood, which we're very happy to call home in Prague, this is where my grandma's place is. This entire neighborhood used to be vineyards. Then they built some beautiful buildings and a lot of people live on the former vineyards, but you actually have some preserved right here, right on the hillside. So we can go wine tasting after this if we want. It's like you're in Napa, but actually right in the middle of a Central European city. Nice little combination here in Prague. We found the coolest spots over the course of the past month and a half to talk about the 49ers, and I think that the under-the-radar ones have been the best. There was the bell tower in Hallstatt, Austria, Tropea, Italy. Do you remember that turquoise water? Lombardi herself has been filming a lot of these. Shout out to her. She deserves a glass of wine. Maybe we'll go get some right now. How about that town in Italy that was under an active volcano? It was called Castelmola, and Mount Etna had erupted about 10 days prior to our visit. Right above Taormina, shout out to the White Lotus. Season 2 was filmed there. Of course, there was Porto. That might have been Mario's favorite. The fortified wine. And that preceded Lisbon, where it was way too hot for it to be San Francisco's proper twin city this time. But normally their climate is a little more moderate. And that's why we compared it to San Francisco. That was a cool little link. And now the trip is going to come to an end with one more surprise stop. The 49ers ran into more surprises than they could handle in 2024. Led the entire NFL in man games lost due to injury. It also led the league back in 2020. Both of those seasons absolutely scuttled by unwelcome surprises. Both of those seasons finished with only 6 wins for San Francisco. So somebody like Brandon Aiyuk, I mean, that was a bellwether of bad times for San Francisco, right? The contract holdout didn't look like he was in great shape at the start of the season. Then he tore both his ACL and his MCL in week 7. Everything went kaput for the 49ers. I talked about it in the dedicated receiver video yesterday. Dead last in average separation at the time of catch or incompletion, team-wide. And the loss of Brandon Aiyuk, the holdout of Brandon Aiyuk, all of that was a big factor in the 49ers not being able to create some room between themselves and opposing defensive backs. So this year, they just got to be more healthy. And FTN Fantasy, the former Football Outsiders, where Aaron Schatz works, he does an awesome job. He sent me the almanac that they put out before the start of every season, featuring some advanced stats. And the 49ers section of the almanac, it's hilariously written, by the way, but great numbers. It's the one part of it that's free. And they actually predict the 49ers to have 11.2 wins this year. That's what their mathematical model says. I get it, they can't have 0.2 of a win, but that just trust the math. The 49ers have the highest projected win total of any team in the entire NFC. I think it's a wide open conference, but basically Aaron Schatz and his guys, the logic that they're using, and the logic really that the math has found, based on the injuries lost last year and based on what the 49ers are looking at in 2025, is that they got tremendously unlucky last season with injury rate. I mean, it was through the roof. And so they've tried to get younger, they've tried to get healthier, they've tried to get hungrier here for 2025. They've replaced a lot of the roster outside of the core of star players. And the thought is that they might just back their way into more wins this year, even if a lot of things remain constant, as long as that injury variable does not remain constant, as long as they remain healthier. And of course, Brandon Aiyuk is a massive part of that equation. So is Christian McCaffrey. If you look at the performance for Aiyuk in 2023, the season where the 49ers had one of the best offenses in NFL history, it started awesome and it just got better throughout the course of the entire year. He caught several passes against Pittsburgh, including 2 touchdowns in week 1. And then I think everybody still remembers the first play of the second half at Pittsburgh, right? The Steelers were kind of knocking on the door of a comeback. 49ers ran Christian McCaffrey to the left. Brandon Aiyuk literally blocked 2 men on one play. First, he took out Alex Highsmith, the edge rusher, a player who's much heavier than him in the backfield. It was just a little quick chip block, but then he sprinted downfield and took out KZ, the safety, about 15 yards away from where he took on Highsmith. 4 seconds in between both of those blocks at most. I mean, it showed us how special Brandon Aiyuk is as a football player, not just as a receiver, because most receivers aren't willing to put in that kind of effort. Most receivers aren't physically capable of applying the strength and the toughness needed on top of the speed to launch both of those blocks. And it sprung Christian McCaffrey free for a 65-yard touchdown. But Aiyuk and McCaffrey, I don't think they were ever on the field at the same time last year. They weren't, because McCaffrey wasn't back until after week 7, and Brandon Aiyuk was done for the season with the ACL and the MCL injuries at the week 7 mark. So you never even had a chance to see the magic of Aiyuk blocking for McCaffrey, Aiyuk setting up McCaffrey, and vice versa. McCaffrey setting up Aiyuk with his presence. You never had that chance in 2024. That was what made 2023 so good for the 49ers. The arsenal that they had was fully available, and then the interplay of the arsenal was great. The craziest stat from 2024 was that when you look at the superstar core, right? So Aiyuk, McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Trent Williams, those guys were only on the field for about 50 snaps together in all of 2024. That's how bad the injury situation was for the 49ers. So when you project this into the future, how do the 49ers handle this year? A, the luck has to be better. B, they're not going to be coming off of long playoff runs in 3 consecutive seasons. So I think that the injury situation has a chance to be more reasonable for San Francisco. And C, you approach Brandon Aiyuk's recovery intelligently. You don't rush him out for week 1 if you think that there's still some chance of re-injury or he's just not fully ready. You can put him on PUP for the first 4 weeks of the season, carry him over from the training camp PUP list into the regular season PUP list, have him come back week 5, and everybody is happy. I think that's the most likely scenario for the 49ers. That's when Brandon Aiyuk might be back. One last look at the Kings Vineyards. We're probably going to have at least one more of these videos from Prague, but just in case this is the last one before we leave mainland Europe, look, there's a plane. That might be our plane out in the distance. Just in case this is the last one, I think it's a good under-the-radar spot, but still a very beautiful spot for a 49ers update on a different continent.